Hey students, so I brought you to my backyard here because we have this great big tree, and my family refers to it as the tree of life because it's so gigantic. Look how huge this thing is. I'm a big guy, but this tree makes me feel very, very small. And the reason I show you this tree is because I want to talk about the Eden temple. So in the very beginning of the Bible, we see that the entire earth, the entire creation is God's temple. That is where God rules from. And in the middle of that new creation is a place called delight. Now, we usually read the word Eden there, but the word Eden means delight. And so delight is this place where God and man live together. But very quickly we see, just a couple chapters, that mankind, they make some mistakes and they have to leave delight behind. They no longer have access to delight. And it stays that way for a while. It takes a couple books later. In the book of Exodus, we see a person named Moses kind of come onto the scene, and God instructs Moses, hey, I want you to build a place for me to meet together with man, a place where we can kind of start to rebuild this delight that we used to have and that I want us to have together again. And so Moses starts building this thing called the tabernacle, or the tent of meeting. And God gives some very specific instructions for the tabernacle. He says, I want you to build it in this way with these kinds of designs because I want it to remind people of our old place of meeting, which was Eden, as we build this new place of meeting. And so God designed the tabernacle so that when you first walk in, it's going to be a very dark room, but your eyes are immediately going to be pulled in this one direction because there's one source of light in the tabernacle, and it is a golden tree. A golden tree, right? Because the lampstand in the tabernacle was fashioned to look like an almond tree, and it has these branches, and you never see it this way in the pictures. I don't know why we don't draw it this way, but each of these branches holds a lamp, and so there's at least 7 branches because there's 7 lamps. I guess one branch could hold several lamps. I don't know. I've never really seen it. Anyway, your eye is drawn to this thing not only because it's creating all the light in the room, but because it's solid gold. Like, this is a serious amount of glow happening here in the corner. And then as your eyes kind of adjust to the inside light and the lamp light and all of that, you start to notice that embroidered into all of the walls are these images, right? Images of the garden. You see images of all kinds of flowers and trees, and there's birds, kind of mixed in with the trees, and some animals embroidered in there. And then it hits you in the nose. You start to smell smells of a garden. That's because at the other end of the room is the altar of incense, and on the altar of incense are burning these exotic flower petals and oils to kind of like create this scent of garden space inside of the tabernacle. And then once you can see all the way across the room, you notice this big curtain, as you might know, and on the curtain are embroidered these 2 enormous cherubim. And cherubim are scary angels. They have some human attributes, they have some animal attributes, they have lots of eyes, wings, swords, all that stuff. And it immediately reminds you of the cherubim that was set to guard the Garden of Eden after Adam and Eve had to leave it and separate mankind from God's presence, to separate them from delight. So then we move into the New Testament. Jesus comes on the scene. And one of the very first stories we get about Jesus, and the only story we get from his childhood, is him sitting in the temple talking with the teachers of the law and the scribes, and he's amazing them, right? And then we keep on seeing all these stories of Jesus adjacent to or within the grounds of the temple. Even though Jesus never lives in Jerusalem and the temple's in Jerusalem, we keep on seeing him there. And at this one point, there's some people who are challenging him, and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Why do you think you have this kind of authority? And Jesus says, hey, tear down this temple, and I will rebuild it again in 3 days. And John tells us there very clearly that Jesus is referring to his own body. And so Jesus has taken the role of the temple onto himself. He's ingested it into his own being to re-enter mankind into the delight of God's presence. Then we learn, after Jesus' death and resurrection, that God has chosen to dwell within every believer, making every believer into a part of the temple. And so in 1 Peter 2:5, we see, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And then way at the end of the story, the last reference to temple is there in Revelation 21:22. John is writing again. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. I hope you enjoy looking for these themes that start way back in the Old Testament and stretch across into the New. I really enjoy it. I hope that you can see this one, that as Jesus interacts with the temple, that you can kind of think back to the whole idea of God bringing his presence back in with man, to bringing delight back between God and mankind. But keep your eyes peeled for others. There's a whole lot of themes that come out of the Old Testament into the New. We can't cover them all in this course, but keep your eyes peeled for them, because I think every one of them are amazing. I hope that you are having a great day. I'll see you later.